big gold cross and stroll up and down the white sand, and the girls would see him and he'd look them over and pick one out. Cousin Paolo had said there'd be work in Boston. Chinga, Cousin Paolo. Fuck him. There was nothing in Boston but snow and snotty, dried-up women with zippers between their legs, and big black dudes who liked to beat up little Cubans. Now Felix had a job. It was work he knew well enough. It was work he'd done before. Just like the Americans, thought Felix, to make speeches on a day of national disgrace. Pearl Harbor Day, the day the Japs kicked the mierda out of the American Navy, and they celebrated with speeches by important men like the one with the pig face. Cuba had a day like that, the day of Babia de Cochinos, the Bay of Pigs. Felix wondered why the Americans didn't celebrate that one, too. The man with the pig face, they had told Felix, was an important man, mucho hombre, a man of the government, and Felix would be a big hero when he killed him. They had tried to explain it to Felix, that the man was going to tell why the Americans were giving weapons to the government of Haiti to kill the guerrillas. These guerrillas were young men just like Felix, they had explained, so this man was an enemy of Felix, and an enemy of Cuba, and an enemy of the great communist revolution in Haiti. Chinga these Haitian guerrillas, chinga their revolution, chinga this pig-faced man who wanted to make a speech in the old square brick building in Boston. All Felix wanted to do was get away from this frozen hellhole of a city where everybody wanted to kick his ass, and Cousin Paolo was in jail and therefore unable to introduce Felix to the men who would pay him to carry drugs. He turned up the collar of his thin windbreaker and shivered. The sign told him that the temperature had dropped another degree. Tan frio. Too damn cold. It was 6:56. He eased himself closer to the front entrance of the building. His finger lightly stroked the trigger of the little gun in his pocket. 2 uniformed policemen stood by the steps. Warm orange light shone through the windows of the building. The policemen looked cold and bored, as if they'd rather be inside. Felix tried to look bored, too. He didn't have to try to look cold. The 2 black limos pulled up, close to the steps, closer to the entrance of the building than Felix had expected. A tall man with a child perched on his shoulders stepped up beside him, and he could feel people pushing up in back of him. They had seen the limos, and they were gathering around to see the man with the pig face. They had shown him a picture of the man. He was an old man with round pink cheeks and a flattened-out nose and white hair and tiny eyes. A pig-faced man. Felix had looked at the picture for a minute and nodded. He wouldn't forget the face. The man's name, they told him, was Thurmond Lampley. Felix had shrugged. He didn't care what the man's name was. He was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Latin American Affairs, they told him. Felix rolled his eyes. He was an enemy of the brave guerrillas in Haiti, they continued, an enemy of Castro, an enemy of Cuba, and Felix didn't even bother to tell them that he didn't give a shit who the man was or what he believed. They told him it would be a good and brave thing to kill this pig-faced man. Felix remembered what he had said. "I do not hate this man," he had said, "but I am happy to kill him. Tengo cojones. I have plenty of balls." The $1,000, the trip back to Miami, these were the things that made Felix happy to kill this Thurmond Lampley with the pig face. The first one out of the limo was a big blond man without a topcoat or a hat. He stood there for a moment, not smiling, looking all around. Felix saw him nod to the policeman and then bend back to the open door of the limo. Then the man with the pig face climbed out. The blond man stood straight and looked around some more. He stared right at Felix. It seemed that he was staring right into Felix's soul, and Felix eased himself back behind the tall man with the child on his shoulders. When Felix looked again, the blond man was no longer staring at him. The man with the pig face was smiling at the crowd, and at the same time speaking to another man who was standing beside him. "Chinga tu madre," cursed Felix under his breath, trying to hate.